Well, finally, after a long couple of days of waiting for the official news, Mitch Marner has been traded to the Vegas Golden Knights as part of a sign and trade. The Mitch Marner era in Toronto is over. Now, it should be noted, at the time of recording this, we're still waiting on the official package coming back. We're expecting it to be Nicholas Waugh and possibly a draft pick in there as well. I'm going to talk about the package at the end of the video. Right now, we're just going to focus on Mitch Marner. And to do that, I'm actually going to play the footage I recorded 2 days ago when we first heard about this sign and trade. Obviously, the package has changed, but I talked a lot about the Marner saga and how things went wrong and how much this just really does suck that it didn't work out for Mitch Marner in Toronto. So I'm going to play that now, and then we're going to get to the trade details at the end of the video. But before we cut to that, I do just want to emphasize again, I say it in this Marner saga recap, but I am truly sad that it didn't work out in Toronto, and I wish Mitch Marner the best in Vegas. He's a fantastic player. The mix in Toronto just didn't work, and it was time for change. If 2 years ago you had traded anyone else, it would have been fine. There needed to be a shakeup of some sorts, and Marner kind of forced that change on his own. So wish him the best. It just sucks. Yeah. So anyways, here is me from 2 days ago. Now, of course, we've known that Marner was going to be gone for many, many months at this point. The second that the horn sounded at the end of Game 7, we knew that Marner was gone. He was being booed in the third period every time he touched the puck in Game 7. Leafs fans are fully done with him at this point. Now, granted, if he had come back and signed a team-friendly discount, people would be talked back into it. But Mitch Marner is gone, and it sucks, man. Like, it does genuinely suck because this is a player that for a long time I loved cheering for Mitch Marner when he was a Leaf. And the fact that it didn't work out here really does just leave a sour taste in my mouth. There's a whole story with Marner's time with the Leafs and how he went from being this fan favorite puppy dog personality in his first few years to becoming one of the more hated active members of the team. And now that he's gone, he is surely going to get a treatment similar to when John Tavares left Long Island or when Johnny Gaudreau left the Calgary Flames for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Rest in peace to Johnny Gaudreau, of course. But when those players returned to their former teams, they received some pretty harsh boos. In the atmospheres in their former cities were quite spicy, and I expect that to be the exact same for Marner. So what went wrong with Mitch Marner in Toronto? Obviously, it's a few things, and I'm sure you know the story by now, but just in case you don't, I will give a shorter version of it here. Mitch Marner, when he's drafted with the Leafs coming out of London, he gets to live the dream, play for his boyhood team. He grew up a Leafs fan. He was drafted by the Leafs. He was this hometown hero, and everyone was super excited to see him play. He comes in his rookie season, and he is just absolutely electric. He's immediately one of the most fun players to watch, not just on the Leafs, but in the entire league. He's one of the best young players in the league. All kinds of crazy things he can do with the puck. He was nicknamed Magic Mitch for a reason. And those first 3 years, well, the first 2 years especially, were just a ton of fun. And he actually was doing pretty decently in the playoffs. Granted, first round exits, but he showed that he could at least be a solid playoff player as well. Then obviously we get to the offseason after his second year, and this is where the story takes a bit of a turn. So the big thing is Kyle Dubas takes over as general manager, and he goes out and he signs John Tavares to the massive 7-year, $11 million deal. And a big part of that pitch was, hey, John, you're going to get to play next to Mitch Marner. Now, it's important to note, at this point in time, Mitch Marner and Mitch Marner's camp were prepared to sign an 8-year contract extension with an average annual value of $8 million, an 8x8 contract. They would have signed it at that point. Marner had 2 seasons under his belt, 60-point player, a lot of unproven stuff there, but they were willing to sign, but the Leafs did not engage in those talks because they had just signed Austin Matthews, which we'll talk about that in a second, and William Nylander still remained unsigned, and they didn't want to sign Marner before figuring out Willie because Willie could not play in the fall without a new contract, and obviously didn't play that fall as he held out until the last possible minute. But it's important to note Marner would have signed an 8x8. The Leafs didn't do it. Now, we should also go back in time to when Austin Matthews signs his extension, and the very next day, Mitch Marner's agent, Darren Ferris, in the newspaper says that deal is basically BS and that Marner was going to get all the money he is owed, and basically saying, like, you want Marner to take a discount, but these guys aren't. It didn't play well, and obviously that's become a whole thing with Darren Ferris, and we'll talk about Ferris in a second, but Ferris criticizes the Matthews contract, but him and his client were willing to sign an 8x8 extension going into the next season. Leafs win, and this is a Kyle Dubas thing, right? He learned from Lou Lamoriello, if you have time, use it. Yeah, you want to sign a contract now, but there's no rush. You're still under contract for a year. We'll figure it out later. Remember that. So the Leafs take the ice the next season. John Tavares is a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Mitch Marner has a career year, 94 points, helping John Tavares to a career year as well, and his value is now at an all-time high. And that summer was the most obnoxious, ridiculous media PR stunt that I have seen in hockey in recent memory. Darren Ferris, who is... How can I put this? Darren Ferris is someone who really likes to negotiate through the media in a way that no other agent really does. There were daily updates from insiders that were very clearly carrying water for Darren Ferris and for Mitch Marner. The Leafs were trying their best not to engage with it, but all of these reports were coming out. Marner's going to sign a big offer sheet. He's going to sign for $14 million with the Blue Jackets on an offer sheet. He's going to get all this. He's not going to settle for less money than Austin Matthews. All of this crap. And we get through the summer, and unfortunately, the Leafs do cave. And Mitch Marner is given a 6-year contract at $10.93 million. Basically 11, but he wanted to get his jersey number in there. He signs for way too much money. And at the time, the expectation was Marner was going to reset the market. Big contracts like Mikko Rantanen and Braden Point were waiting for the Marner deal to sign. And the expectation was that this was going to be the new norm. RFAs were going to get these big paydays. And then they didn't. Now, this is also an Austin Matthews conversation because he also got a big old bunch of money, but didn't take the max term of 8 years. But Marner's camp made such a stink of the media and just so much press and bad PR that it really left a sour taste in the fans' mouths, like in Leafs fans' mouths, and it turned the entire city against him. There were reports at this time that Marner was getting harassed about his contract details, asking why he wasn't signed by random people in the street. But truthfully, the damage that was done was from Darren Ferris, his agent, and also there was the Paul Marner stuff. I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to talk about the guy's family members. And my problem was with Darren Ferris. Let me be clear. I really do not like Darren Ferris. I don't like the way he negotiates. I do not like how he tries to weaponize the media and is just honestly obnoxious with it. So Mitch Marner, he gets his big contract. He gets all the money in the world. The Leafs now have the core four signed for over $40 million. It's the whole big thing. So much money allocated to 4 forwards. And then the world stopped. And this is where my problem with Brendan Shanahan rears its head, because not only did the world stop and the cap stayed flat, the Leafs had time to adjust course and alter their plan. None of the no-move clauses had kicked in at this point. But you still want to experiment. Hey, we got all these young guys. Why would we trade them? So you lose in the playoffs. The Montreal series is the first one where fans really started to turn on Marner. Obviously, he didn't score in that series. There was a delay of game in game 6, I think it was, on the 5-on-4 to make it a 5-on-3. He fell apart in that series. Marner was horrible in that Montreal series, and he took the brunt of the criticism because, well, he demanded to be paid like one of the best players in the league, and when it mattered, he didn't show up. Fast forward a year, and in 2022, he helps Austin Matthews score 60 goals. Hey, that's a ton of fun. He's a very good player, productive player in the regular season once again. And then come time for the playoffs, it starts off well. He scores a goal in game 1, and everything is flying high, but then the Leafs eventually lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 again. Well, actually, they only lost to Tampa once, but they lost in the first round in game 7 again. And Marner, again, was around a bunch of criticism. Let me be clear, the time to trade Marner was after 2021, but the Leafs didn't. They wanted to run it back, whatever. 2022, oh, you're right there against the defending champs and back-to-back Stanley Cup final, or Stanley Cups, 3 straight Stanley Cup finals appearances, whatever. Okay, we'll run it back again, I guess. 2023, the Leafs actually win a playoff round, but then they are quickly stomped by the Florida Panthers in round 2. And this is the point where you really need to trade Marner, because at July 1st of 2023, that's when the no move clause kicks in. And Kyle Dubas admits he would be open to trading him. Brendan Shanahan fires Kyle Dubas. The no move kicks in, and Marner now has all the control. You go through 2024, you lose to Boston in 7 again. Marner was once again not good in that series, and he was the complete focal point of that offseason. And the Leafs didn't even approach him to move his note. Like, there was some talks about a Vegas and William Karlsson thing, but we only learned that a year later. There was never a peep about moving Marner or even approaching him. Then we get to training camp, and at this point, Marner is less than a year out from free agency. We know that this is a problem, and his agent makes it clear they are not negotiating in season. About 6 months later, as Marner is in the midst of a career year, the Leafs try to negotiate, and they offer him a 8-year contract extension with an average annual value of $13.5 million. It would have made him the highest paid player in Maple Leafs history, at least until Austin Matthews' extension comes due in a few more years. It was the biggest contract in Leafs history. It would have been. But of course, Marner's camp says that they don't want to negotiate, so we get to the trade deadline, and at this point, the Leafs are like, well, we have to explore our options. There was a trade on the table for Mikko Rantanen, 1-for-1. We've now learned that Lou Lamoriello offered Noah Dobson as part of a package for Mitch Marner around the trade deadline, and Marner refused to waive his no-move clause, which is his right, and also his wife was about to give birth. That is not a time for anyone to want to think about uprooting their lives. Then we get to the playoffs. The Leafs beat Ottawa. Marner looks pretty good in round 1, and then obviously lose in round 2 against the Panthers in 7 games, and Marner was very much not good in that series. I'm not going to say that other guys were good. Tavares and Nylander were brutal the last 4 games. Matthews was obviously not great in that series either. But Marner gets the brunt of the criticism because he has been the one through the years that has demanded to be paid the same as elite players around the league and demanded to be treated like one. By his own admission, Marner said that the Leafs players get treated as gods, and yet he was the one who most consistently did not perform when it mattered most. So that brings us to the offseason that we're currently in, where we've known Mitch Marner was going to be gone for a long time. It just was a matter of where he was going to go, what that looked like for the Leafs, and could they recoup any value whatsoever. Okay, so that should be at least a decent recap of what the Marner saga has been. Again, there are so many layers that will inevitably be unpacked by fans and media over the next several months. I just want to tell everyone, because I feel like it needs to be said, I don't think Mitch Marner's a bad person. I think he's a good person, and I think he will thrive in Vegas, where there is less attention, whether or not it's full scrutiny, whatever. I know that the Toronto market is not for everyone, even though I do think it can be overblown at times. Mitch Marner is definitely someone who did not do well with the media attention and pressure from fans in Toronto. I think he will do a lot better in Vegas. I would not be shocked if Vegas won a cup while Marner is there. And as a result, Leafs get dunked on and Leaf fans get dunked on whenever that happens. Now, as for Marner's extension in Vegas, it is an 8-year deal with an average annual value of $12 million per year. It is worth noting that this is less money than he could have made on the open market. It is less money than he was offered to stay in Toronto as of this season. So, I mean, it is a bit of a discount, but with the whole taxes thing, it'll be fine. Like, he is going to make a pretty penny. And importantly for Vegas, as the cap goes up, the deal will look better than if he had signed for 14, for example. I do think this is actually a really solid deal for Vegas. And I mean, you give up a couple extra picks, or Nick Waugh, we'll see again what the exact package is. I'm still waiting on the details, but pretty good deal for Vegas. You get the 8th year, keep the AAV down. I think that they will be very happy with this. So naturally, again, I'm recording this as all of this is coming out, and the Leafs are just trolling at this point. They announced a Steven Lorentz extension, 3 years at an average annual value of 1.35. Hey, good for him. I mean, he's a fourth liner that is a Toronto boy. He's a fan favorite. People love him. Sure, I guess. I mean, that's Ryan Reeves' money, and Ryan Reeves is being buried. So cool, you have a fourth liner figured out, I guess. I just want to hear the Marner stuff. Yeah, okay, so it appears that the trade is just 1-for-1 Nick Waugh for Mitch Marner. Now, obviously, Nick Waugh is not going to come close to replicating the production Mitch Marner had, but it is what it is. The Leafs get a valuable third line center out of this, or a depth center, if you want to call it that instead. Nick Waugh, I mean, he's pretty consistently been like a 30 to 40 point guy in his NHL career. 28 years old. He's got another year left, or I think 2 years left at $3 million. He's basically right-handed Scott Laughton. It's another center option for the Leafs to fill out the depth, which in a market where there's not a lot of centers available, getting another guy that can play it is honestly fine, and I'm just happy to get something for Mitch Marner. But yeah, Nick Waugh for Mitch Marner, 1-for-1. Marner's gone. The era is over. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the Marner transaction, and this is the time to vent about Mitch Marner. I know everyone has a lot of spicy takes about him, but at the end of the day, like I said, it sucks it didn't work out. I wish him the best in Vegas, and I'm happy that the Leafs will at least try a different mix. It's not that I had a problem with Mitch Marner. I had a problem with the mix that refused to change. I blame Brendan Shanahan more than anything. So at the end of the day, yeah, just sound off in the comments on whatever you want. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow, July 1st at 5 o'clock Eastern, right here on Game Over Toronto with all the free agency recaps. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Make sure you like, subscribe, and notifications turned on so you don't miss that and don't miss any future uploads. I'll see you guys there. Cheers.